This video is an English translated Dhamma program of Sri Sadham Mastermaya conducted by Most Venerable Sri Samantha Bhadra Thero. Please follow the link below and check the original Sinhala content. My intention is here to spread the practically possible message of universal truth to the international audience. Thank you. Today, we are here to explore the path to eternal peace, or some might call it the path to nirvana. You see, in this world there are really only two paths anyone can follow: the spiritual path and the secular path. Now think about it. What path have most people been taught to follow? From our childhood, whether it is at school or at home, we all train to follow the secular path. You and I, all of us, have been conditioned to live a secular life. So, what exactly is this secular path? It's the normal life you are living. Very traditional, a life that mirrors the way everyone in your community lives by following their customs and routines. In other words, it is living as an ordinary person, thinking in ordinary ways, feeling ordinary emotion, and often dealing with sorrow, pain, and even hate. It's a life where you might constantly find yourself in competition with others, feeling anger because someone else has what you don't. That is what we call a secular life, and it's the default you receive at birth. Everything you do tends to happen within the confines of this secular existence. The problem, however, is that the person living this secular life can eventually start to feel fed up, bored even. And that boredom is the natural part of the secular path. If you are feeling depressed, if you are not experiencing happiness, if you are finding yourself regretting your life, then it is a sign that you are immersed in a secular life. All the happiness, the moments of sadness, the painful experiences, these are all consequences of living a secular life. Because of that, many people start to crave something more. They begin demanding a spiritual path, or what we call nirvana, simply because the secular pattern leaves them feeling empty and bored. This repetition of secular life pattern, the same cycle of feeling ordinary and even discontented, is exactly why some of us start searching the spiritual alternative. And that's what we are here to talk about today. The journey from the mundane, secular existence to the awakened spiritual life. Each point from the traditional ways we learn to live as an ordinary individual to the deep seated boredom and longing for something beyond underscores the need for a shift. And in this discussion, we are going to dive deep into why the secular path, with all its inherent pains and repetitions, eventually pushes us to seek the transformative spiritual path of nirvana. So, as we continue, keep in mind the contrast between the secular life, a life marked by tradition, competition, and often a sense of emptiness, and the spiritual path, which offers a way out of that cycle, a way to find peace and liberation. I believe you are already feeling fed up with this constant monotony in your life. And here's something to really consider. The older you get, the deeper that boredom seems to become. The truth is, as we age, mental breakdowns become more common, and feeling of loss and rejection start piling up. When a person spends too much time stuck in the secular life pattern, they find that happiness just slips away as they grow older. They end up living in a state of discomfort. They might begin to resent others, harboring jealousy because they feel repeatedly rejected by the society. And the thing is, every one of you slowly moving towards that stage in life. So now you need to sense deep down that this secular path is not going to serve you well. At this moment, it is important to reflect, if I continue on this same path, won't my destiny be exactly like that of those who have already grown old and burdened by this relentless boredom, rejection, and depression? All those feelings, this mounting rejection, this ever deepening boredom, and the creeping depression with each passing year are nothing but just consequences of living a purely secular life. In other words, you end up owning all the pain, sorrow, discomfort, regression, and tears. That ultimately means the path you have chosen is the wrong one. Thinking is very important. It is essential if we are to understand the noble truth. Yet, many people never take the time to reflect on themselves because all their focus is gossips about others. The earlier times, gossips was collected by literally walking from house to house, but now mobile phones have taken over that role. All the gossips across the country is downloaded right into your devices. A life spent merely gathering and spreading gossip isn't truly a human life. It is as if a damn soul has taken over that burden, making everyone's affairs its own. Remember, as you grow older, you may find that your mind become increasingly contaminated with this kind of waste. What I'm telling you might just be your future. So listen carefully. Just think about it. If a palm reader comes to you and describes your past exactly as it happened, and you felt compelled to change your future plans based on his predictions because you believed he was right, as same as then, you must be compelled to change your path as consequences of your initial feelings. Sorrow, pain, jealousy, depression, and boredom starts to trigger in. These emotions will only increase and worsen as you age if you continue along this path. Then you need to prepare for that eventually. It is very easy to recognize the unlucky ones. They are overthinkers, constantly worrying about something. I say it again, they are overthinkers, always caught up in a worry. You might even pray that you never encounter such a person in your lifetime. This, my friends, is what secular life is all about. This is the outcome that secular society gets, and in a way, what it deserves. It is similar to receiving a salary at the end of the month for doing a job, except instead of earning money, people following a secular path end up receiving sorrow, pain, jealousy, and regression. The moment you begin to feel these things, sorrow, pain, regression, jealousy, you must recognize that you are on the wrong path and that you are heading towards a miserable life. The necessity of a spiritual life arises precisely because of the results of a secular life. And when you encounter someone unlucky, an overthinker, you should see that person as an angel. Now, what is an angel? Angel is a messenger who brings a new message to the world for the first time. So when you meet an overthinker, consider that individual as an angel who has appeared before you to reveal the consequences of a secular life. Overthinkers begin by sharing a tale of some secular life incident. They might say something like, I have gathered all the gossips about a certain individual, or I was thinking about my mom, my dad, my children, or society. But they never spare any time to think about themselves or to settle their mind in peace. The result is always the same. They become depressed, mentally corrupted, their mind grows restless, and the sleep becomes elusive. All they end up with is suffering. So when you leave this place and step into the society, you will meet these individuals. We often call them the angels in your life. And you don't need to worry about them because they have exactly what they deserve. When you meet one of these angels, the first thing you should do is listen to the valuable message they bring. They speak of the consequences of becoming a hypocrite. Remind yourself, if you follow the same path as this person, the same fate will be mine. But I still have the time, so if I don't change my path now, when I reach their age, I'll face the same outcome. That's how you learn your lesson from an angel. Actually, we should learn a lesson from every person we encounter. I believe that every sight you see with your eyes is there to teach you something. Every word you hear is meant for you to learn from it. Every word you speak can serve as a lesson to help you correct and refine your spiritual path. So, these called angels, those who spend their time in regression and suffering, even to the point of requesting death because they cannot find their happiness within themselves, are very telling. You can easily recognize them. They constantly cry out for the end of their own pain, even though they have created that grief for themselves. It isn't something their neighbor gave them, it is self inflicted. You can clearly spot a person who creates grief by noticing that they criticize or point out the faults in others while ignoring the same shortcomings in themselves. If you see that you share this quality, you would be wise to change it, or else you will suffer the same fate. A person who generates sorrow and suffering does not have a calm mind. If you take 1,000 people from the society, 995 of them have minds corrupted by jealousy, anger, and hate. Essentially, they carry around the garbage of negative emotions. We must decide then that we never want to end up as carriers of such waste. In this secular life, nothing gives you permanent satisfaction. I dare you to find a place in this world and say, Venerable Thero, I found a place where there is true satisfaction. I challenge you because everywhere the final result is a collection of people who beg for death. These are individuals who have wandered too far down the secular path, who have eventually lost their strength and failed to know themselves, leaving them with confused minds. The answer to these sufferings lies within yourself. That is what Buddha taught. Remember the story of Prince Bhaddavagya and his followers, who were searching for a woman who had escaped from their custody. They passed by the Buddha and asked if he had seen her. But Buddha's reply was clear. Nothing is more important than finding yourself rather than seeking something external. So, in your spiritual life, self evaluation is the key. Yet, ironically, when you are with your relatives, family, or friends, all they do is focus on other matters. They enjoy laughing. All they do is focus on matters of others. They enjoy laughing and talking about others. When you sit down with them, your mind is forced to dwell on external matters instead of exploring your inner self. The final result of this is a deviation from the spiritual path. We must observe carefully and keep our focus on the final outcome. Today, we are going to talk about how everything on the secular path is done in a rush. In our secular life, people are constantly looking for instant results in everything they do. They quickly get satisfied and just as quickly they get bored. This constant rush and fleeting satisfaction is something we need to be aware of. Secular followers, those who live only for immediate gains, cannot really be trusted when it comes to long term fulfillments. We must not let ourselves to be rushed. Instead, we should choose to follow the spiritual path. Never rush to solve your problems. When a problem arises in your life, don't hurry to fix it. Instead, set the problem aside and continue living your life normally. If you do that, you might find the problem eventually loses its grip on you. But if you try to force a quick solution, you will feel the heavy weight of secular life bearing down you. It is crucial to decide early on which path you want to follow, spiritual or secular. Once you choose the correct path, it is forbidden to change your route. If you do, you might end up with the same fate as an ordinary person stuck in the cycle of secular living. No matter how much luxury or comfort you have experienced, if your life ends with suffering, regrets, and lack of satisfaction, if you feel that dying would be better than continuing to live, then it's the time to choose the correct path, my friends. There is one more point to consider when choosing your path. We must differentiate between a religious life and a spiritual life. A religious life does not bring eternal peace, it's just another dimension of the secular existence. Anyone who has spent their life in a religious practices has not necessarily achieved the eternal peace or nirvana. Many people, after witnessing the sufferings and hardships among their loved ones, decide to switch from secular life to a religious one. Yet, in doing so, they often encounter the same suffering they left behind, that hatred, jealousy, regression, pain, and eventually a desperate longing for escape. They don't spend a single moment to think deeply about their own existence. Even though they may complete a religious life, it is not the same as the spiritual life. Anyone who embarks on what I call a meaningless spiritual path, which is really just a religious path, will always be subjected to a suffering. So, how can we find the correct spiritual path? Because both religious path and secular path can steer you away from nirvana. The decision to embrace the right spiritual path is best made when you are young. Think of life as a highway where you need to take the right exit. If you miss that exit, you might be forced to backtrack, and sometimes, like a vehicle running out of gas, death will come before you can correct your course. Ask yourself, does switching from a secular life to a religious life, or even changing religions, like from being a monk to a priest, bring you the ultimate satisfaction or the supreme bliss of nirvana? Or is it only when you become the owner of a collection of deep spiritual experiences, when you truly investigate yourself, that you can reach the inner peace of nirvana? The truth is, you can achieve that internal peace only by embracing a genuine spiritual life. And the next challenge is to find that exact correct spiritual life, a life that requires no formal educational qualifications or religious knowledge. Some people find it too odd to live without any religious learning, but spiritual life is about digging deep within yourself. There is a sutra in the Dukkha Nipata of the Anguttara Nikaya where Buddha explained that in this society there are two kinds of people. One group accept everything lightly. They don't think much. They are quick to believe whatever they hear, regardless of whether it is true or false, and they are quick to act on it, only later regret their decisions. These are kind of people you meet frequently in your lifetime. Sadly, they are very foolish and very tribal. They never come to understand the reality of this world, the noble truth, or the nirvana. And then there are the others, those who never panic, who are patient. I have been on this spiritual path towards nirvana for almost 15 years, and if I look closely at those who have walked this journey with me, you will see that not everyone made it from the beginning. Some were eliminated along the way, while others continued the journey. The ones who made it through are the people with immense patience. They had no hope for anything. They gave up all hope, even the hope of attaining nirvana. Meanwhile, those who wanted nirvana fast were gone quickly as they appeared. Beloved ones, you cannot go on this journey to nirvana in a haste. You need to be steady and patient. In fact, you should let go of all hope because if you cling to hope apart from simply living your life, then as life rebuilds itself, nirvana will seem even further away. There is a story I recall that really drives home an important lesson. Once, there was a monk, a teacher with a dedicated student. One day, the teacher had an important letter to be delivered to a particular temple, a task that required absolute resolve. He called his student and said, "Please take this letter to the monk at the temple in the next village." The student, determined to do his best, thought, "I must complete this task with all my abilities." So the student set off his journey with nothing else in his mind except delivering that letter. As he walked along the road, he began to hear rumors from the people he met. They said that in order to reach that temple, he would need to cross a bridge, and that bridge was guarded by a samurai murderer who killed anyone who dared to cross. They explained that this samurai has vowed to kill 100 souls in the name of God as a way of repaying divine blessings. People warned him, "He has already killed 99 souls. If you cross, you will be the 100th. Don't go there, you will be killed." Yet, driven by his determination to deliver the letter, the student returned to his teacher and explained the situation. The teacher replied, "It's your destiny to die. Since he is a samurai, there is no chance of survival. So welcome the death as your own." The student then asked, "How do I welcome the death, master?" The teacher answered, "When you keep your eyes closed while brandishing your sword in one hand, if you feel a deep cold raining down from the top of your head, that is the death you must welcome." Here the deep cold symbolizes the samurai's sword, my dear. Imagine the student's determination. He resolved that the death doesn't matter. He would welcome it. So he went straight to the bridge. There he stood, eyes closed, sword held high, fully expecting that moment when the cold would rush down his head. The samurai, however, was taken aback. He thought to himself, "This one must be special. Every other soul I have killed has fled at the sight of my sword, terrified of death. But here he is, standing tall, not fleeing, brandishing his sword." Moved by student's fearless resolve, the samurai approached him, bowed, and said, "I have met 99 souls before you, who were all afraid and fled even though I killed them. But you are different. Instead of running away, you came right towards me, sword in hand. If you possess wisdom that I do not know, please teach me." The student replied, "I will teach you what I have learned, but first I must deliver this letter to the temple beyond this bridge. Once that is done, I will share my wisdom with you." After fulfilling his duty by delivering the letter, the student went to teach the samurai the wisdom of preparing oneself for death. The lesson here is clear. The student fulfilled his spiritual requirements by welcoming death. The idea is that as long as an individual fears death and refuses to welcome it, they will continue to create a secular life filled with sorrow, fear, pain, jealousy, and all other forms of sufferings. When you welcome the death, every suffering is resolved. This story reminds us that in our spiritual lives, we must not be hasty. If you rush, you will never truly see or reach nirvana. Even Buddhas of the world taught to us, do not be a hasty person. Remember the saying, Kanti paraman tapo titikka. Patience is the best form of meditation. For anyone coming from a secular life and searching for spirituality, Take a note. In spiritual life, we are not in a rush for anything and we do not desperately seek immediate results. Instead, we learn to welcome death as it comes, living our lives calmly until that moment. That, my friends, is the core message of spiritual life. When you practice in this way, Nibbana will come closer and closer to you. But if you chase after Nibbana in haste, it will only slip further away. My advice is not to search for Nibbana as if it were a prize to be won. Leave it. Let go of all your hopes. Remain calm and simply live. Dig deep into your own spiritual life. Examine how your soul behaves, how you think about others, whether you depend on others, whether your mind is calm, quiet, and stable. Today, let's reflect on what happened during the time of Buddha. I recall a story where Anandathera once approached the Buddha and said, Buddha, half of this noble path survives because of Kalyana friends, or you can say spiritually wholesome companions. Who exactly is a Kalyana friend? They are the ones who awaken our minds. The Buddha replied, Ananda, it's not merely half. The entire noble path depends on Kalyana friends. Kalyana friends are the companions we must keep close. And if we don't have such companions, it's better to live alone than allow someone else to dim the lights of our spirituality. You must protect that light, nurturing it yourself instead of letting it fade. Make every effort to keep your mind awake and alert, clear and steady. A person with a clear mind faces few problems, while those with cloudy, unsettled minds have troubles from head to toe. I'm telling you, if your mind isn't clear, you won't see a smile on your face. In other words, don't become like that person, a Jonah, if you will, constantly weighed down by confusion and sorrow. You must resolve to be someone with an awakened, clear mind, someone who doesn't cling to hopes, who doesn't worry about anything, and who never let anyone to dim the light of spirituality you have kindled within yourself. If you allow others to extinguish that inner light, that will be your greatest defeat in life. Always strive to keep your mind sharp and clear. It is easy to say you will do these things, but remember, you have been living the opposite all along. When a person has no aim, no purpose in life, happiness remains elusive. Life needs an aim, life needs challenges. To overcome those challenges, life requires self confidence, the energy to prove that even when someone tells you something can't be done, you can do it. Keeping calm is essential. If I gathered everyone who truly follows the spiritual path here, I would have shown you that none of them rushes for anything. No one here is desperately chasing after quick spiritual results. They live every day in peace, in harmony, without lofty expectations. They simply live in the moment. I ask you to clear your mind, much like trying to see a road shrouded in fog. If you can't see a path ahead because of the fog, you will lose your way in your spiritual life. On this path, those who fail are the ones who rush everything, who seeks immediate results. That haste is like tumbling down a staircase. You end up with nothing, hence you are back to the beginning. In this world, it is always the patience that is needed to follow the spiritual path. The secular path is for those who are in a hurry, whose minds are never clear and calm. You must learn to distinguish between these two paths and choose the right one, the spiritual path. Think about the pain, regression, and suffering you have seen in the people as they grow old. Often, that pain exists only in the mind. It is an imaginary pain, not a physical one. Aging, getting sick, and even death are not true pains. They are just psychological constructs. Look at Siddhartha Gautama's renunciation. It was not because he wanted to escape physical pain, but because he sought a way to overcome the mental suffering that accompanies secular living. Today, we have discussed how to keep our souls in eternal peace as we age. The Buddha found a way to transcend the mental turmoil of aging and illness, even though he too grew old and fell sick. Physically, he changed, but mentally, he remained sharp, clear, and content. Have you ever seen someone grow old happily or getting sick and still remain joyful? It is almost unheard of. If we can learn to accept life's challenges with happiness, there will be no mental suffering. Now you must gradually understand the futility of the worldly life and move step by step toward the spiritual life. As you progress, you will begin to feel that old pain fades away, replaced by a sense of relaxation. You might even realize that those people you thought were always with you were merely figments of your imagination, just as those you believed to be distant companions were also illusions. All these things are simply creations of the human mind. These insights are not easily grasped by someone whose mind isn't sharp. No matter how smoothly you try to explain, it's like asking a blind man to sew with a needle and a thread. If you truly practice this way, I can assure you, you will be free from suffering. There will be no pain, there will be just life. We create our own problems, our own sorrows. Often, you form friendships and family ties, and then you begin to create complications for yourself. My advice is avoid getting too deeply entangled in relationships, even friendships. Live simply. Engage with those who are present in the moment. Live like an alien, someone who is new to this world. Without established relationships, just conversations with whoever you meet each day. And when the time to move on, you leave without farewells or tears. In truth, people who follow the spiritual path often live like aliens. They have given up ownership over everything. They have discovered ultimate liberation. So, how do we reach that ultimate liberation? I already outlined the way. Let's revisit what I have been saying about the spiritual path versus the secular path. First, I explain the conditions of those who never try the spiritual way, and then I describe what happens when you choose the spiritual path versus sticking into a secular life. When you follow the spiritual path, you free yourself from mental suffering. But here's something important: nobody attains nirvana after they are dead. That idea of afterlife, of going to nirvana or heaven or being near the Almighty, is a story, a construct of religious path. The teaching I share with you are meant for achieving the results while you are alive. We believe what we see, what we feel, and what we can achieve right now. There is an old saying, Pachattang Veditabbo Vinyu Hiti, which means we must be able to witness or experience things in the moment. I have laid out a path where the results are evident right here, right now, without resorting to fictional or fairy tale stories that practically impossible. What I'm offering is an independent method to keep your mind straight, free from addictions, free from dependent on others, free from clinging into anything at all. This is the path taught by the Lord Buddha. Now, the challenge is whether you can understand these concepts because many of you come from traditional religious backgrounds. You might have simply followed a religion without taking the time to discover the noble truth for yourselves. You began this journey after my invitation, and now you must walk this path carefully without getting thrown off course. When you commit to such difficult road, you will eventually feel that you are on the right track. But remember, you must go slowly, calmly, and with a clear mind. Let me share a technique to follow the spiritual path without becoming exhausted. If you try to reach Nibbana with too much zeal, nature won't allow it. You will only end up tired and frustrated. Instead, listen carefully and clearly to the path of Nibbana and work on sharpening your mind. Once your mind is clear, continue with your ordinary life. Go to work, come home, help others without trying to do something special just for Nibbana. If you force yourself to do something in its name, you might end up performing heretical practices. Simply listen to the Dhamma message and live as you did before. In time, your mind will naturally guide you to the Nibbana. When you rush, your mind may take you to an illusion, a fake Nibbana. Just as when you hastily choose a partner in a marriage based on an idealized image, only to later realize there is a big difference between the imagined and the real. If you try to attain Nibbana after hearing my message, your concept of it may be nothing more than an illusion. You must understand this. If you try too hard, you will reach a false destination. So, if you seek the real Nibbana, keep your mind clear, sharp, and alert. Trust in the wisdom that has been shared with you and simply continue your day-to-day life. That is the bitter truth about Nibbana. No one will believe in a promise of epic afterlife if you can't achieve it while you are alive. I know many will reject this path because it lacks a grand, fantastical story. But I don't want to create a fairy tale. This is the truth. Take it or leave it. You can't point out a specific destination and say, this is Nibbana, because then your mind will generate an artificial Nibbana, a fake one that will end up pursuing, and eventually you will lose the chance to attain the real thing. So, dear followers, Nibbana has no shape, no figure, no time, and no space. If there is a fixed road to it, then it belongs to the realm of time and space. That is why every Buddha who has ever been born never showed you an exact path to Nibbana, nor will any future Buddha. What they did was reveal the nature of the secular or the worldly life, show you the nature of the spiritual life, and then point you to the direction of the path. But never said this is the only way. If they did, Nibbana would become something physical. Instead, Nibbana is beyond time and space, and you all need is a clear and sharp mind. Your mind will inevitably falter on this path, but key is always to bring it back up. Imagine a caregiver tending to a patient who keeps falling down. If the caregiver becomes angry every time, that is a sign they are on the secular path. Instead, you must treat your mind with patience. Each time it falls, gently lift it back up without getting mad. I do this myself. No matter how many times nature knocks my mind down, I simply bring it back up, maintaining a constant inner peace. When you practice this method, even when your mind falters, keep smiling. Maintain that calm joy both in the fall and when you pick your mind up again. With consistent practice, you will move closer to Nibbana and eventually be freed from samsara. What you all need is a practice. And you must remember not to get mad at your mind, just as you wouldn't scold a patient who repeatedly falls. I remind you, these concepts are hard to grasp, but if you understand them, you can reach the finish line. Truly, there is nothing to worry about this life. Today I have discussed nothing about religion, What I have talked about is the difference between a secular life and a life of genuine inner peace. When you're stuck in a secular world, you will feel like giving up. Your life becomes a series of sorrows. I live my life relaxed and calm, and that calm is what I call Nibbana. I cannot show you a definite path to Nibbana because it exists where the time and space absent. If someone claims to offer a precise roadmap to Nibbana, that is the biggest hoax you will ever encounter. Reaching Nibbana is very simple in its simplicity, yet many hesitate to accept it because they try to rush the process. What you need is to do remain calm and live your ordinary life with patience. Kanti Paramantapo, patience is the noblest conduct in the universe. With your permission, Venerable One, today you explained that there are two paths in this world. One is the spiritual path, another one is the secular or the worldly path. You mentioned that many of us currently follow the secular path in our efforts to reach the spiritual, yet in doing so, many become ensnared on an in between path, the religious path. Indeed, many are confused between the spiritual and the religious paths. They often mistake the religious for the spiritual. In truth, the religious path is more simply another form of secular existence within this samsara. But as you said, there is no specific way to reach Nibbana. Son, if there were a specific path, when Nibbana would be a physical destination. Imagine I told you this is the exact way to reach that carpet laid over there. And we both agreed that carpet exists there. If that carpet were Nibbana, then Nibbana would be confined by time and space, composed of matter. But Nibbana transcends such limitations. You must examine your arguments and seek the truth. Many meditation centers, in fact, perpetuate a grand hoax by claiming they provide the path to Nibbana. So it becomes clear that presenting a prescribed path as the way to Nibbana, the religious path actually prevents us from attaining true Nibbana, leading many followers back into suffering. Exactly. Driven by burdens of secular life, you turn to religious practice hoping that meditation will reveal the perfect method to attain Nibbana. Yet after 60 or 70 years of practice, you may find yourself no closer to Nibbana, only filled with profound disappointment. It seems better then to remain in the secular life than to chase a mirage. That is why we counsel remain honest in all matters but never deceive yourself regarding Nibbana. Seek the original Nibbana, even if it appears unpalatable. Moreover, how could we ever give you this tainted Nibbana? Even if attempted, it would only become a counterfeit. The true Nibbana lies beyond the grasp of ordinary understanding. Any oversimplification yields only false results. In Sri Lanka, what I observe is that nearly all forms of Buddhism amount to a fabrication, a false presentation of true path. Precisely. They depict the spiritual path through various practices such as meditating in secluded huts, but these methods waste your valuable time. Notice that none of them encourage you to seek the results from their practices, nor do they invite genuine feedback on their instructions for attaining Nibbana. I suppose then that even more counterfeit methods for reaching Nibbana must exist. Of course. Otherwise, we would be burdened with answering every foolish question about Nibbana. It is preferable to let such inquiries remain unanswered. Venerable Thero, you stated that there are two pathways in life, the secular and the spiritual. Clearly, we continue on the secular path while many mistakenly tread the religious path, believing it to be spiritual. When one truly embarks on the spiritual path, suffering comes to an end. If suffering persists, it is a sign that the wrong turn has been taken. I have noticed in meditation centers that they segment the paths. declaring one as the spiritual and other as the secular. Yet, as you have taught, even the so called spiritual path does not liberate one from the sorrow, it remains just another form of secular life. All these pathways yield no results. They represent a fruitlessness, endless search for Nibbana. What we need is someone who has already ended this search, a being well versed in the nature of human existence. It is futile to seek guidance from those still entangled in practice. Another point you Another point from your lecture, you mentioned that the community is obsessed with gossips. Everyone is quick to grab their phone to pry into others' lives. Yet I understand that the true spiritual practice involves gossip about oneself, searching within, not about others. Exactly. When a person sincerely turns inward, he becomes so absorbed in his own journey that he has no time for trivialities of others. The habit of seeking gossip is merely a conditioned behavior from secular life. Even casual inquiries like, "Where are you going?" are often asked out of habit without genuine interest. Such patterns merely reflect the conditioning of worldly existence. You also remark on how the mind becomes corrupted over time. From childhood to this day, our mind accumulates corruption. Yet, as we listen to your lectures, we begin to recognize these corruptions within ourselves, and I feel that we are gradually cleansing our minds. This clarity, this clarity often comes with age. In youth, one is entangled in life's myriad problems, but as you grow older, the contrasts become unmistakable. A young person may be overwhelmed by complications, whereas an elder, having transcended them, remains serene. That is the joy and reward of true spirituality. It is as if we have finally discarded the garbage once we have collected ourselves. Precisely. We were born pure, then became tainted by our own actions, and eventually we cleanse ourselves, returning to the original state. I believe that this internal cleansing begins for many of us after hearing your lectures. There is no need of grand gestures. All that is required is careful observation and a keen mind. In a sense, a human mind is inherently programmed for Nibbana. With focused discussion and analysis, even over a period of 8 weeks, you can reprogram your mind towards the truth. Venerable Thero, I also wish to address your comments on space and time. I perceive you through a framework of time and space, yet I sense that you do not reside where my eyes behold you. Your presence appears as an illusion, yet it is through this very illusion that you have guided us towards Nibbana. We cannot describe your true location without invoking our limited perceptions. Before you describe where I am, can you explain where you yourself truly reside? Such explanations elude us. Understand that the entire universe is an illusion. Within this illusion, we occupy myriad places where defy complete explanation, neither by you nor by me. So, transcending space and time is akin to reaching an ideal state. Is that correct? Yes, you will attain the ideal state when you shed your individual identity. A person who completely dissolves his selfhood reaches Nibbana. They don't die, they become immortal. Our mind grows tainted by selfhood, but when that impurity is cleansed, the mind attains immortality. That, simply put, is Nibbana. You also compared our mind to a caring for a patient. It is true that we can feel weary or even depressed when attending to a patient for too long. Similarly, the mind may sometimes wander or becoming erratic. That is the very nature of the mind, my son. There is no need to worry about its fluctuations. You only become troubled when you cling to the idea that the mind belongs to you. Let go of that concern and you will experience the true freedom. Remember, Nibbana is but a bonus on your life's journey. If you treat it as your salary, you are bound to fail.